Get ready for more valuable financial insights from Northern California's premier retirement income planners, Ahmad and Jim Files, owners of Peak Financial Freedom Group. For more information, go to peakfin.com. And now, here's Dan and Jim.
I'd like to welcome you to the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. Dan Ahmad here with Jim Files. And we love that we have so many loyal listeners tuning in week after week, year after year to get more information about how to make the best decisions about their money. So we'd like to thank you all for listening. And also just make sure, there's additional data available. You can go to our website. You can download a ton of information. You can watch a ton of videos, watch our TV show, listen to the podcast on the radio show. And then also, if you'd like, make sure on the website, you can take advantage of our free second opinion meeting with you. There's no cost. Just go on, sign up, and then the staff will get in contact with you to set up a time that we can meet, because a lot of you have been listening for years, and then something triggers you to say, I think I might need some help now, whether it's the stock market being ultra volatile, whether it's you retiring, whether you not being able to create enough income. Things happen that make you think, hey, I need some help. Well, call in now or go to the website. Website is www.peakfin.com, or you can call on your cell phone pound 250 and say the keyword money, and we'd be glad to help. We also have a YouTube channel. You can check out a ton of videos there. And just make sure that you continue to stay tuned, because we'll talk about new and updated subjects at any time. So, Jim, I think now, especially with what's going on in the market, it's a great time to look at some very important people that have made some really good quotes about money and finances.
And this is a great one. George Foreman, he said, the question isn't at what age I want to retire, it's at what income. And that is a great, great quote, because most people look at it the other way around. When I turn 65, when I turn 67, when I turn 70, I'm going to be in a position to retire. But it's really not about your age, what Foreman is saying. It's about how much income you're going to need in retirement to retire successfully and to do the things that you had planned before retiring, that you have enough money to do those in retirement. So, Dan, this is a great quote. It's something we talk about every day with people that come in for the first time is, how much income are you going to need to retire? And it kind of starts with the budget. Maybe we can walk through those thought processes now.
100%. Well, I think just the basic thing you're talking about there is people come in all the time and we say, when would you like to retire? Oh, I'm going to retire at 67, or I'm going to retire at 65, or I'm going to retire at 70. We ask them why, and they just think that's the magic number. They just think it. They have no idea what George Foreman is talking about. They have no idea how much income they're going to get, because what if they plan to retire at 70, and at 70, there still isn't enough income to meet their lifestyle? Then is 70 even realistic? Heck no, It's not realistic. What if they said 70, but they act in there, let's say they're 64 right now, they actually could retire at 65, which they'd love to do it if we can find out how much income they're going to get and then put a plan together that will show them. And I think then the most important thing you said right there is income always has to be a component associated with the budget, the monthly budget, correct?
Yeah. People don't come in and say, I have a budget of $8,150 a month. I've allocated 2.5% for inflation every year for the next 30 years. I know on an after-tax basis, I'm going to need $11,337 to maintain my budget. They don't say that. That's what they want to know. They want to know how much after-tax income are they going to need every single year for the rest of their lives to maintain their current budget. And as that budget goes up with inflation, is their income going to be able to support that? So really, again, it's not about age, it's how much income you need to maintain your budget.
Exactly. And we take it one step further in that, let's say their budget was $8,150. We don't want to build a plan that will give them $8,150 of net after-tax income per month. We want to build a plan that will give them significantly more, give them $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 of net income per month, so they have a significant amount of what we call net excess cash flow every month coming in for the rest of their life. And if you think about what just that means, if you are just bringing in enough income to meet your budget, you're going to worry and struggle every month. Whoever's the person at home that takes care of the bills, they're going to be freaking out every month because you barely have enough coming in to cover those expenses. And you don't want the person taking care of the bills worrying about not being able to pay the bills. So you want to generate a significant amount of money above the budget so that excess money can be spent. It can be saved, it can be used in the future, and it can be gifted as well by using the concept of net excess cash flow.
The problem with when people listen to that, Dan, they think to themselves, well, I don't have enough money to do that. I'm just worried about maintaining my budget. But you'd be surprised. There are some really unique financial instruments out there right now that allow you to generate substantially more income that is guaranteed for your remaining life than what you would take off a CD, for example, or what you would take off a managed portfolio. Because if you follow the safe withdrawal rates on a managed portfolio, really you're not supposed to take out more than 3% per year adjusted for inflation as you retire. So if you had $1 million, that's only $30,000 a year. It's not very much money to support your lifestyle. But there are other instruments that you can sometimes double or even 2.5 or 3 times more income on an annual basis. And that's where we get them the excess cash flow, Dan.
Well, the cash flow is the king, as you're talking about then. And one of the issues people freak out about increasing their cash flow is they freak out about they're going to pay so much more taxes. And taxes will increase as we take more income out. But most retirees or people planning for retirement think that when they retire, they're going to give up 50% of their gross income in some form of taxes. Because when they're working, that's what happens. If you make $20,000 a month of gross income right now, you pay Social Security tax, federal tax, state tax, 401ks, extra deductions, you end up netting about half that. You end up netting about $10,000. So at retirement, you think you're going to net the same 50%. At retirement time, typically our clients are going to net somewhere between 75 and 85% of their gross income and net income, which means you're only going to be giving up somewhere between 15 and 25% maximum in federal and state taxes. So why wouldn't they then max out their income when we could prove to them that they're not going to be in a high tax bracket?
Well, when they see it, when they actually see it in writing and demonstrated to them that this does work the way you've described it, they do see it, or they can envision it at that point. But when you just sit there at home and you're worried about retirement, do you have enough money? What if the stock market goes down 20, 30%? What if you lose a lot of money when you enter retirement? What if you're in retirement and the market continues to go down or becomes volatile? You're trying to pull income off your asset when the market's going down. It's very frightening for people, Dan, that don't know about these other strategies.
Well, the whole goal is to then use those strategies that you're, previewing, and then make sure those strategies are embodied in an actual written plan. Put everything together in writing so someone can see their plan. And if someone can't see the numbers, they have no comfort. They don't feel secure that for the next 30 years, everything's going to work out okay. They have to be able to see the numbers. We're dealing with a really cool contractor that is remodeling our kitchen, and they're not doing just 3D, which is kind of like, oh, that's the new age, the show in 3D. They actually create lifelike images that looks exactly like what your kitchen is going to be, with the exact cabinets you're going to use, the exact handles, the exact countertops, the exact appliances, the exact flooring, the exact color of the painting, every single thing. So you get to see before they start one day of work exactly what the end product's going to be. It's flipping awesome. And that's exactly, to me, I was attracted to them because that's what we do for people with their money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you could imagine this, if you could see visually how much income you're going to need every month and every year for as long as you live, if you could see visually how much after-tax income that's going to generate, if you could see visually what your budget is and today and how it's going to increase and how that after-tax income is going to support that budget, if you actually see it for the next 30 years, you'll feel really, really comfortable that these numbers do work. And also, if you can see how much money is going to be left to your beneficiaries or your remaining spouse if one of you passed before the other at any given time as you're drawing income out of your asset base. So all this stuff, the visual point of this, as Dan, you just mentioned, is really, really important for our clients because a lot of them don't understand numbers or money, but they do visually can interpret what we're showing them and really comprehend that, hey, this stuff does really work and I can see it for the rest of my life.
Well, the goal is to help people stop worrying about their money so much. And we say that a lot. I think that so many people listening right now think they're the ones that worry about their money more than anyone else does, and the other people don't worry about their money. We can tell you 99.9999999% of the people that come in here to receive a second opinion and just let us tell them where they're at right now, they are deeply worried about their money for many, many different reasons. Doesn't matter whether it's the man, the woman, doesn't matter if they're taking care of the finances, as far as the investments or the budget, they all are worrying about their money. And the only way you can minimize how much you worry, you'll never be able to eliminate, but minimize how much you worry about your money is by having an actual plan. And the plan has to be in writing. You do not trust your advisor to give you verbal documentation, because they could say something this week, they can change their tune completely next week. Everything has to be in writing. It's the only way you can hold your plan, your advisor, and yourself accountable and responsible for what's going to happen to build a successful retirement plan.
Two of the worst things that you could hear from your advisor is, number one, you're going to be just fine with no documentation, nothing in writing. Or when the market starts to plummet, or even it hasn't plummeted, stay the course, don't get out no matter what, because the market always comes back. Well, we believe the last statement, the market will eventually theoretically come back. But if you're getting close to retirement or in retirement, even of late, with the market going down 20%, it had to scare you. And this market isn't over being volatile. It'll be volatile for the rest of our lives. So you have to make a decision that getting a second opinion and looking at different strategies so you can accomplish your goals is really important as you get close to retirement. Or if you're already in retirement, you have to seek advice to make sure that you're on the right path so that you do not make a financial mistake.
Well, with the rest of the show, we're going to cover what you're talking about right now, Jim, and that is helping retirees and soon-to-be retires, which is all we work with, understand financial truths. And it really comes down to that there's so much misinformation out there about money, financing, the stock market, investing. No one really knows what the truths are, because today, the new norm is to say whatever you want and have it be the truth, whether it is the truth or not. So when we come back, we'll get into a lot of specifics. You're back with Ahmad and Jim Files with the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today our topic is financial truths. And this is so important because right now, especially with how the market is, how the world is, how politics are, you name it, we just have so many issues out there, and everything affects our finances. Well, we need to understand what the financial truths are, not fake news, but what the financial truths are. And there's so much misinformation out there about money, stock market, your finances, interest rates, real estate, you name it. So much misinformation. It's no wonder that every single person listening right now is probably confused. And the big issue today is the world has gotten to a point where people think they can say anything they want, whether it's the truth or not. And they then think that they're right to be able to have other people believe that they're correct, whether they're not correct. Right, Jim? So overall, we want to make sure that the truth is viewed today almost like a big slithering snake. It's hard to grab and something you might not really want to hold on to because it might bite you. But because many people can't handle the truth about their money, they keep making mistakes over and over and over again, or they just tuck their head in the sand and they hope everything's going to work out. So we always ask you, and we want you to ask yourself, can you, as a retiree or a person getting ready to retire, can you handle the truth? So let's look at some of these financial truths. And right now, if you're like most retirees, you're taking far more risk than you think and far more risk than you should. Is that a financial truth right now that we know?
100%. 100%. If you looked at your statements over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, when everybody thought the first of this year the market was just going to rock and roll and go up, and all of a sudden the market did the opposite. It went down. It only took a few comments of the new president and his associates for the market to adjust. It can go either way, but forget about what happened over the last 3 months. This is going to happen for over the next 20 or 30 years. It doesn't take much for the market to move in either direction. And when you're getting close to retirement, you better understand the truth that volatility will devastate a portfolio once you start taking income out of it. So you have to make sure you have a plan in place, knowing that what will happen is going to affect your portfolio going forward. It'll affect your income needs. It'll affect your stress level. It'll affect your emotions. It'll affect how you use your money in retirement. So one of the worst decisions people make, Dan, at this point in their life as they get close to retirement, or they just entered retirement, is not understanding their portfolio, the risk, the income needs, all those things. They don't have it in writing. They just hope it's going to work out, right?
Well, intuitively, most people, when they get to retirement, which we've seen, or they get to within 5 years away from retirement, intuitively, they know they have to reduce their risk. They know that a big loss is the one thing that will probably stop them from having successful retirement. They know this. The issue is they just don't know what to do about it. And their current advisors or their 401k or their friends or their spouse, whoever's taking care of the money, they don't know what to do. So nothing gets done. And they stay invested at 60 or 65 the same way as when they were 40 or 45. Maybe they were a teeny bit less aggressive because they went into bonds. The problem is then bonds got hammered in the early 2020s and lost more money than the stock market did. So people just don't know because they don't have anything to compare against. And when you talk about volatility, that really is both sides, the stock market going up and down. So volatility isn't all negative. It could be good going up, could be bad going down. The issue is if you have a volatile portfolio, even if it goes up a lot and then down a lot, you can't take much income off of it because it's too volatile. And you have to base your income distributions on how low the account could be. So if you could lose 50%, that means you can only take your income distributions off of half of your total portfolio right now. The only way I think personally that we will not have significant volatility, like you're saying, over the next 20 or 30 years is if we have a stock market crash and it stays down for 20 or 30 years. Then we won't have any volatility. then there's nothing left, right? Then we have no volatility. Yeah. Any other way, we're going to have ungodly volatility. And let's talk about now why 95+% of people, retirees or soon to be retirees, that come in here and we look at their assets and find out how much risk they're taking, why they're taking so much risk, and it's because nothing's in writing. Just like you said earlier, if your advisor tells you, oh, don't worry, you're fine, you can't lose much, we're going to get really good rates of return. If you've been with that advisor for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you got to believe the advisor, but you shouldn't, because it's all verbal. There's nothing in writing. It doesn't matter how much you like the advisor. It doesn't matter how good a friend you think the advisor is. Never, ever. You are putting yourself, your spouse, and your family in jeopardy by believing someone's verbal promises. Always happen in writing. So we're going to do a risk audit. We're going to find out exactly what you have inside your portfolio. And we're going to look at the good side. How much could the portfolio make in a really good market? But we're going to look at the downside, how much you could lose in a bad market. And at retirement, is it more important to focus on the biggest gains or carving out the biggest losses? And no matter what, everyone knows we have to carve out the biggest losses. Otherwise, you're probably not going to make it. So we want to make sure everything's in writing. And then we want to make sure that if the stock market crashes 50%, on average, we don't want our clients to really lose more than 5%.
Yeah, imagine if you're listening right now, thinking through this process, if you were able to see all of your money demonstrated in this fashion, would you feel more comfortable? You may feel real uncomfortable when you first see it because it's going to show that you have a lot of risk in your portfolio. If you have a portfolio made up of 50% stock and 50% bonds or bond funds or stock funds, you probably have a risk factor more than 30%, maybe closer to 40%, which means that the market goes down by 50%, maybe you're down by 35%. That may not sound like a lot, but imagine if you had $2 million, if you're down by 35%, you're down with that 32.6. That's about $700,000. That's $700,000 you're down by. And people say, well, I won't be down $700,000. Well, folks, look back through history. Ever since 1929, the market goes down an average of 39% or more every 5 years since 1929. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter periods of time, but it does average out over a long period of time. Of late, the market went down close to 20%. The NASDAQ went down close to 25%. Yes, it's bounced back in the last few weeks, but do you think the volatility is over, Dan? No way.
And that's just called volatility. It's not good or bad. The market's still down for the year. If you look at for the last year or for this calendar year, look at the last 12 months, we're still about even, maybe up a little bit, but we went through all the pain and suffering and worrying for no benefit to the value, the size of our assets. And that's why we took that extra risk, was to get a significantly higher rate of return. And we did have it for a while until the market went down. Now we don't have that excess return. So we just have to make sure you're not taking more risk than you should be at this moment. You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour, and today we are talking about financial truths, things you need to know as facts rather than just these slurs that are put out there by people on the radio, TV, on the internet, and they just say things and they don't back them up, because that's how the financial industry works in general. They like to talk a lot. They like to give you verbal promises, but they do not put your plan or their promises in writing. In this entire area, Sacramento area, we are the only firm we've found, and there could be others, right? We could find them out there, but we're the only firm we found that will actually put every single little detail about your money and our promises in writing. And it's the only way you can trust anyone, because how can you prove someone said something? You can't, because they can just say, I didn't say it. If something's put in writing and it's signed, at that point, you can prove that someone said something. And now we have something to hold your plan and your advisor accountable and responsible for. So we think that's just hugely important. So when we do first meetings with clients, what's your budget? How much income are we going to need? And then how much risk are you taking? Those are two of the big ones. And we're going to use sophisticated software to be able to tell you how much risk, because you don't know. You know intuitively what's happened this year. Oh my gosh, our account went down 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, whatever. So you've lost a lot. You just really don't know how much risk you have. We need to be able to pinpoint that. We need to quantify your risk. because you need to know how much risk you're taking. So then it allows you to make decisions that make you feel comfortable. Because what if you're like most of our clients, literally 19 out of 20 clients, they do not want to lose more than a maximum 5%, even if the stock market crashes 50%. And think about, is that how you think? Are you okay saying, yeah, I'm okay losing half of my $3 million portfolio? Or are you like saying, gosh, the maximum I'd really want to lose in the worst case scenario is 5% of my $3 million portfolio? And if you think that way, then we are the right company for you to work with, because that's what we designed plans to do. And if you need help, just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. That's pound 250 and say the keyword money. And we really focus on being able to quantify things for you, because you've never had anything quantified. How many clients come in that have had their risk, their fees, their income, their taxes, how much they can leave to the beneficiaries actually quantified and put down in writing?
None, absolutely none. I've never, ever met a client that came in and had that data. Never, ever. Now, I have a lot of clients come in, they think when I ask them how much risk they have, they will answer, I don't think I have a lot of risk because my broker said I didn't have a lot of risk. If we ask them how much income they need in retirement, they have no idea. If we ask them how much risk they really have, they have no idea. If we ask them how much after-tax income they need in retirement, they have no idea. We ask them what their budget is. Most people don't know what the budget is. Some people do, which is great, but most people don't. If we ask them how much money is going to be left to the beneficiaries after they use their assets for income at any given year, if either one or both the spouses pass away, they have no idea. And unless you have all that information in writing, signed by your advisors at the fiduciary, how can you go through retirement successfully? I don't know. I don't know how they do it, Dan, but people just I don't know if people are, I hate to say it, lazy at times. They just don't want to make the effort, or they think they're just going to be okay. They have a positive attitude, and because of that, they don't really understand the level of risk they have and what could happen in their portfolio, and they just kind of truck along with hoping that things will work out okay.
Well, it's all based on psychology, and psychology for humans forever is, if you do not understand something, it frightens us. If you do not understand something, you do not participate in it. If you do not understand something, you shy away from it completely. Well, how many people understand their money or their investments or how they should now allocate assets? When they're young, most of them do understand the concepts of saving as much money as you can. Don't watch it. It'll be okay. Write it out. Everything will be okay, because we have time on your side and you don't need the income for 20 or 30 years. It's great. That's a very easy thing. So it's easy to now be a really good saver. The problem is it's not easy in any way, shape, or form for any of you, no matter who you are, if you're in retirement or getting ready to retire, to now shift from what's called stage one, asset accumulation, when you're being aggressive and trying to get the highest rates of return, into stage two, which means when you're retired or within 5 years of retirement, you should now try to do everything possible to preserve your assets against large losses above 5%. And you want to create as much income you can get at the highest level, as long as it won't run out for as long as you live. And if you do those two things, it will increase your chances of a successful retirement probably by 90%.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because as I listen to this, because we do this every week, we talk about these subject matters every week. People listen to us, and we get calls every week. But our phone should be flooded. We shouldn't be able to even walk to the bathroom, because people should be thinking about their money at this level. But the problem was, or has been, is that they've been indoctrinated for the last 40 years of doing something one way. If they were working, they were making contributions to their 401k plan. They probably didn't make very many, if any, adjustments to what they owned in that 401k plan. They had limited options, and every 2 weeks out of the paycheck, X dollars of money went into it. And one day when they woke up, when they're 65 years old, they had a lot of money there, and they think that they can continue to do that in retirement. But you have to remember, when you were working, you had a paycheck coming in. So if the market went down, yes, it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't devastating, because you weren't pulling income off your portfolio at the same time the market was going down. But we can show you all kinds of data points whereby if you are retired and we have a year or 2 years of a downturn early in retirement, the chance of you running out of money is very, very high, unless you're doing something different. And you have to look at the differentiation point in a portfolio to make sure that you don't make a financial mistake. And you do need all this stuff in writing. You have to have it in writing, Dan.
Well, the key from one of the things you're talking about there is to make sure you know how much risk you have, but you can't be in that position any longer where you were talked into hanging in there, writing it out. You're in it for the long run. Don't worry, it'll all work out. You'll make these huge gains. And everything might work out as far as recovering the values. The problem is, if you're trying to use your portfolio for income, which 95 out of 100 people right now have to, because we don't all have big pensions, if we're using our assets for income, we can't take much of any income off of a volatile asset like the stock market, because if one big loss is going to basically put you in a position, high probability you'll run out of money if we have just one big loss while you're taking distributions out. So you have to guard against that completely. And you want to make sure that you understand the pain of suffering a big loss. If you suffer a 50% loss in the stock market, you need not a 50% gain, you need a 100% gain in your reduced assets just to get back up to even. And who knows how long that's going to take. You're back with Ahmad, Jim Files with the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today we're talking about financial truths. And financial truths are so important now because the world allows you to say anything you want, whether it's true or not, and have people believe you. And we don't think that's right when it comes to you making financial decisions, because all that's going to lead is you in a position to have a high probability of making bad decisions and then your retirement security being completely wiped away. So we have to understand financial truths. We talked about risk and understanding how much risk you're taking. The other thing that we need to look at is everyone always tells you, invest in the stock market. You'll be fine. You'll get these huge rates of return, 9 to 12% per year on average. Well, in some years you get 9 to 12%, but to get 9 to 12% on average, you have to be in a huge growth market. The only time that we've gotten in the last 15-year time periods, the only time we've gotten close to 12%, we never got 12% in the S&P 500 compounded for 15 years, was right after the 2008 financial crisis stock market crash. That's the only time you'll get huge rates of return that we've seen historically in the stock market is after a crash, because then you invested at the low point. But how many of us really are that good or that lucky to invest exactly when the stock market crashed, exactly the lowest point?
And most people do the exact opposite, and all the data supports that. Most people buy during euphoric times, right? The market's going up, and you're forced to contribute more money into the market, and then the market goes down. When the market's down at the bottom, people are afraid to invest. It's the worst time mentally, they think, to invest, when it's the best time, but nobody knows where the bottom is, so they're reluctant to pull the trigger then. So people do the opposite, typically, of what should be done. But that's only the human nature of the mind. People are frightened when the market goes down. They're frightened when they're losing money, and they're frightened about what they hear in the press or what could happen around the world. So they start making decisions that aren't good decisions. But you have to remember, again, we talk about this every single week on our show. If you're getting close to retirement or you're in retirement, your game plan has to change. You have to design a plan that's going to mitigate your risk and give you the best chances of maximum income so that you can get through retirement successful. And if you are retired now, or you're soon to be retired, and you've gone through the last 2 months of market volatility, you know what it feels like right now to be nervous about your money. Because if you weren't nervous, then you're probably immune to a lot of different things, because people, every single person we've talked to, they were nervous about their money when they walked in here for the first time, because they saw the market drop, they saw their portfolio drop, they saw the negative news in the press, and they start to get concerned. Can they get through retirement with the amount of money they have right now?
It's funny what you said there, that everyone comes in nervous, and it's funny because it's true in that, let's say if 20 people come in, 19 out of 20 are nervous as heck. 1 out of 20 isn't nervous. And I wonder what in the heck is wrong with that person or that couple. Yeah. They're like, everything's fine. I'm like, they must be on some kind of really good drugs because they're the 1 out of 20 that isn't worried. When we look at what overall you've been told in the past, which again is no longer a financial truth, a lot of times people, brokers, your 401k will tell you, don't worry, you can take out 5 or 6% of your portfolio every year and you'll never run out. And they make it sound like it's a certainty, but it's never in writing, which means it's not a certainty. In fact, it's not going to happen unless you get really, really, really lucky. Let's take an example. Let's say you have $1 million, and let's say you're in just an S&P 500 index fund, which your broker calls a moderate. You read it. It says it's moderate on the internet. You look up your 401k. It says it's moderate. But in 2000 and 2008, that would have lost more than 50%. So at that point now, if you were taking 5% off of $1 million, you're taking $50,000. Okay, maybe that can last for a little bit of time. But if your million loses 50%, you're down to 500,000. You still need that $50,000 of income. That means now you're taking 10% out of your remaining value. What's the chance you can take out 10% out of any portfolio and have it last for as long as you live?
No chance, really. There's no chance. I mean, you will run out of money. We have all kinds of data here to show you how that works. over a period of time. We can actually take stock market returns for the last 25 years, assuming you're getting S&P returns every year. And we can show you where after 14, 15, or 16 years, you are flat broke with no money. It's not that the market didn't do what it did. It's not that you didn't get really, really good rates of return in some years, because you would have. But to be in the market, you're going to have years where the market is also down. And so because of that, and you're drawing income out consistently on a monthly or quarterly basis to maintain your budget, you're drawing money out where the market goes up or down. And when the market's going down, you're drawing money out. It has a huge impact. Even the last few months, if you were retired right now and your portfolio dropped by 15% and you draw out 5% annually for the last 2 months, it's really difficult to make up that really quickly because you took out money in a down market. And that's what people don't understand, Dan.
And I think intuitively we kind of think that a little bit. Even people that don't understand their money really well, they kind of think it, but they don't know mathematically how it's going to affect them. So again, like everything else we do, we quantify it and we put it in writing so they can understand it. Because if you can see that if you let the stock market be the asset, the volatile asset you're going to use to create income while you're in retirement, and you can see that in many, many instances, your money's going to run out between 10 and 12 years. Are you going to continue to do that?
Nope.
The answer is heck no. But if you're not showing it, you're going to continue to do that, continuing to make that mistake. Yeah. You can't put yourself in that position to continue to make that mistake. How about if just one spouse takes care of the money? So financial truth is you cannot let one spouse take care of the investments, especially when you get to the age of 55, 60, 65, 70, because our lifespan's shorter and one spouse is going to pass away first. Well, what if the man's taking care of the investments, the woman's taking care of the budget, so they both are doing their fair share, but the woman doesn't understand anything associated with the investments and the man's taking care of it, and then he dies? What the heck does she do other than completely freak out and not know what to do with the money? And he's probably taking significantly more risk with the money than she would want to. And how does she now tame the risk down? All those things happen, which we find is one of the biggest reasons. If you're 60 or older, you better have a plan in writing. And even if you're the guy and you don't want it, you have to do it for your wife.
Yeah, it's like having a trust right now. If you have a family trust because you have assets of $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, you've been committed to get a trust. You know that when you die, that trust document is going to give the other spouse the ability to go to an attorney and to make sure those assets are divvied up correctly eventually, that, things are done to make sure the trust is in good order. There's no difference with your financial plan. As a matter of fact, your financial plan is even more important because it's about your life, not about your beneficiary's life, which would be a trust, right? Your life, you better have that in order. You better have that in writing. And that's what we do here, Dan.